Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Mr. Action back at you with another episode of Packed In Action Figure Reviews, where we give you that action that's packed in. And on today's episode, we are going to be doing a retro revisit where we go back in time and take a look at figures that were released in the past and we, for lack of a better term, revisit them. We like to see how these figures have held up over time from back then up until now, and we also want to do a quick review on some of the aesthetics as well as the articulation, but overall just the nostalgic feeling of those figures when they were released. On today's episode of the Retro Revisit, we will be focusing on Herman Schultz as the Shocker, as well as Norman Osborn as the Green Goblin. We will also be announcing the winner for the free giveaway of the Black Symbiote, Black Spider-Man from the Secret Wars wave, so stay tuned for that as we are going to be announcing that, and I do want to, keep in contact with you guys. That way I can get whatever information it is that I need from you. But without further ado, let's go ahead and take a closer look at some of these figures. Starting off with Herman Schultz, also known as Shocker. This figure was first initially released back in 2017, a part of the Sandman Build-A-Figure wave, which also included Green Goblin, which I will be going over to as well. Now, this figure, when first initially released, it was a whopping $19.99. You guys remember when action figures were $19.99, man? Those were definitely the good old days of Hasbro, if you know what I mean. Now, we're charging $50 for a maximum Spider-Man, which I guess we'll see when these reviews get dropped of whether or not it's really worth, that $50 price tag. But going back on topic, this iteration of Shocker is based from the Ultimate Universe, so the costume design is going to be a little bit different from the classic costume that we are more accustomed to being seen. Not a bad costume at all in any sense of the word, but there are going to be some minor differences that we do see. Now, the body mold which was utilized for this Shocker happened to be the Bucky Cap mold, which was your Marvel Legends standard back at that time. Every figure was pretty much utilizing the Bucky Cap mold, and the Bucky Cap mold wasn't actually a bad mold at all. I would say in certain aspects, to some degree, it does still kind of hold up, as we can see here. Just kind of looking at the silhouette of the figure, man, we can see that the body is not a bad body at all. I'm very happy though to know that we do have the Vulcan body as our new body, as I do feel like it was long overdue. We don't want to be reutilizing the same body mold time and time again, because it can cause some problems with some weird gappage in some of the figures. And unfortunately, this figure does suffer from some of that weird gappage from just the over reuse of, the Bucky Cap mold time and time again, but still not bad for the time for what it was. Now, taking a much closer look at the figure, one of the things that really stands out about this Shocker figure to me that, our most recent Shocker figure did kind of lack is the quilted colored lines that we do have. Now, I am aware that with the newer version of Shocker, the lines are sculpted in, but unfortunately, it was a bit of a trade-off as those sculpted lines did not have the paint inside of them, which we could have liked. Now, of course, you can do a simple trick just by simply going in and using a Gundam marker or a pen to your liking and filling in those lines. But if you're going to spend a certain amount of money for a figure, man, it's only right that it comes at you correctly. And that's one thing I can honestly say about this Shocker back from 2017 is, the painted lines on here are done very cleanly. If you just take a look at the figure and you turn it around and you just look at, some of the small intricate parts where you would think they would kind of get lazy and just speed up the line work, we can see that the line work on here is very clean and everything really does matches up, man. And I really do like that, because it really does go to show that the artists in the art department, they really put a lot of love into their figures, and it is clear as day when taking a look at this Shocker figure. One of the other highlights of this figure happens to be Shocker's gauntlets, man, and I really like the sculpt work that they did with this gauntlet. As we take a closer look here, we can see that it's in this very dark gray, this kind of cast iron kind of type look, and I like that it's not a flat plastic. I do like that we do have some dents in there and some dents, just to kind of show that it's been used, you know what I'm saying? And I think that, is a very nice touch of detail. Again, a little definitely does go a long way, and I'm really happy with just how it came out. And then I really do like how they do have that black wash just to kind of help bring out some of those details in those gauntlets, man. Very well executed. I won't complain. Now jumping into articulation, our shocker here can look up. His head is on a ball and hinge, so he can get a very nice range of motion looking up, and he also has a very nice range of motion looking down. So very nice that we have those there. It looks very nice and clean. Unfortunately, because of how the head is designed, we are not going to get that much of a tilt in the head. It's going to be very minimal, so that is something to be aware of. When it comes down to the arms, we actually get a really nice decent range of motion. We can get it past that T-man pose, so where his arms can kind of make almost a Y shape. His shoulders are on a swivel, so they can go around 360 degrees. He also does have a bicep swivel as well. He also does have double jointed elbows. One complaint with this figure that I have, but again, I have to keep in mind, the time in which it was released back in 2017 is the pins. I really would have wished that, we would have gotten the same color pins. And I do understand that, a big reason as to why it's probably like that is because obviously on this side of the figure, we do see that it's brown. Again, if you are a customizer, you can easily paint that and match that yellow, but that is entirely up to you. And when it comes down to the hinges on his arm, we can go up about this much and we can go down about that much, which is also a pretty nice decent range of motion. I do know that on that new shocker figure, it is all one solid piece, but they do kind of make up for it by giving you interchangeable forearms where he has kind of a more open grasp hand. Coming down over here to the ab crunch, we do get a crunch that goes about this far down, which really isn't the best crunch, but it's far enough for shocker. When I think of shocker, I don't necessarily think of the most flexible person. He can go back not really too much, to be quite honest, not even really quite sure. But as I mentioned earlier, with the reuse of certain body molds, this is a Bucky cap. We can see that there is going to be that nasty gap in there, so you can kind of move the figure around to kind of fix it. We also do get waist articulation in there. His legs do go up quite a bit, so that is pretty far up if you ask me, and they do go back far, actually a pretty decent amount, so not gonna really be mad at that. He also does have thigh cut 360 degrees. He does have double jointed knees, which go really nice. We don't get any boot to butt action, but that's okay. He also does have the swivel here in the calf, and he also does have ankle pivot going up. We can go down, and it also does go side to side. So a relatively decent articulated figure for a figure that was released back in 2017, and we really can't beat that. And up next on the list, we have Norman Osborn, also known as the Green Goblin. And similarly to the shocker figure, this Green Goblin was also released in the Sandman Build-A-Figure wave. And I really do like that, Build-A-Figure wave. We actually did get some pretty decent figures. Now, I will go ahead and address the elephant in the room, and this was something that, was definitely addressed when this figure was first dropped, was the head sculpt. And that's not to say that the head sculpt is bad at all. Honestly, if you ask me, this head sculpt is probably the best head sculpt for a Green Goblin that we've ever received. And, that I know some of you might be pained to hear me say that because, a lot of people like the classic look of Green Goblin, and I can definitely understand, the nostalgia, attached to that. But I mean, man, look at the details in this face, man. I mean, even for a figure that was released back in 2017, I can honestly say that, if this was released, in 2025, I would actually be very content with how this head sculpt looked. Now, this head sculpt, despite how good it looked, honestly did have some unfortunate controversy. And I'm gonna go ahead and address the elephant in the room. It was because his face was darker than the rest of his body, and I can definitely understand that. I can definitely understand that point. That's something that I can definitely see. Does it bother me? Sometimes. I can honestly say definitely in certain lights and how the figure is posed, you can definitely see it, sometimes more than others, but you can do a quick fix for that. And honestly, what I would just simply do to kind of match the the body with the rest of the face is apply a little bit of black wash to the body. You know what I'm saying? You would actually get the scales on his body to pop a little bit more, if you were to add a little bit of black wash, and it would kind of match up with the face a lot more, in my opinion. Some people do like, the brighter aspect of a Green Goblin, which I can definitely understand, but I do like the fact that the face is dark. It definitely does give Green Goblin, a very dark, sadistic look. And you know, the head sculpt, man, again, I really can't just really, like, the head sculpt is just really on point, man. Like, look at that. The teeth is nice and yellow. Even the eyes is painted in very well. Just everything about the head sculpt, man, is just phenomenal, man. I really can't complain. Even the ears. And you know, when you're taking a look at even the hat that he's wearing, man, there's a lot of nice sculpted detail in there with the wrinkles in there, man. And I do like how it kind of sways off into one direction, man. You know, it's not swayed off so much to where it kind of like throws the figure off in certain flight poses. If anything, I would say it definitely adds to it. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to focus on is, you know, just the overall aesthetic of the figure, man. It's just a very nice looking figure when you really take a look at it. You know, even taking a look at, you know, his clothes, you know, we can see that there's some wrinkles in there. I like the fact that they didn't go with a flat kind of plastic look, you know, just to kind of show you like, yo, he's actually kind of wearing something. Then he also does come with his little satchel bag here, and you know, I really like how detailed this is, man. We can see that, you know, we do have some metallic gold there in the buckle to kind of show that it's a buckle, and then, you know, we do have some metallic gold here in the buckle as well. And you know, it's very nicely detailed, man. We can see that, you know, we can definitely see that he's packing in there. Pause. You can definitely see that he's packing some pumpkins in there, you know what I'm saying? So definitely can grab some stuff from there. And just the overall aesthetic of the figure, man, is really nice, man. You know, even his boots, you know, he has like these nice kind of, I'm not quite sure what these boots are called, but they're very nice in detail, man. Just the wrinkle work on there, man, is phenomenal, man. I really can't complain. This figure is definitely it definitely still holds up. I'm not gonna even lie to you guys, it holds up for me. You know, this figure does lack a little bit in the articulation department, but we will get to that. But all in all, man, this figure is a very well, nicely sculpted figure, man. And you know, I would even say that it's even better than, you know, the most recent Green Goblin, not the William Dafoe Green Goblin from the MCU, but the retro carded Goblin, in my personal opinion. Now jumping into articulation, our Green Goblin here, his head is on a ball peg and a swivel, so we can get a very nice range of motion looking up, which I think is super duper important, especially for a flying character. He can have his head look all the way down to as such, which I also think is very good. And one of the things that I really like about this figure is we also do get some really nice head tilts in there for a bit of a little attitude and personality for your character, man. Very, very nicely well done. For his arms, unfortunately, that is where we are going to come into a little bit of problem. Unfortunately, that is about the most you are going to be able to get his arms to lift up. We do have some hindrance, and I do believe that is probably due to the sculpting of the scales on his shoulders, unfortunately. So that is something to be mindful of. He does have bicep swivels 360 degrees, and he also does have double jointed elbows. Again, with the elbows, because of, you know, the clothing here that he has, or his gloves, you aren't really going to get the best bend, but I still think the bend is still relatively decent for what it is. His hands are on hinges, so they can go back about this much and they can come forward about that much as well. When it comes down to the diaphragm, he can go back about this much, so not, you know, the most back that you can get. And for a Green Goblin figure, you know, that is definitely something that you are going to want. He can go back quite a bit, but just not as far as much as I would want him to go. And coming forward, he can actually come forward quite a bit. And you know, I don't know how I was able to do that. I guess I was just playing with the figure, but I don't know, when I was watching other people's reviews on this figure, you know, they complained a lot about, you know, the forward, and I felt like they were only getting it to like here. For some reason, I was able to get it like much further than from what I seen on the videos. So I don't know if it's broken. You guys let me know if your figure does that, but he can go quite forward quite a bit, and you know, I'm really content with that. Now he also does have waist swivel 360 degrees. He also does have legs that go quite the bit up. They can go back far back, actually a far good amount. He does have thigh swivel, which does go 360 degrees. He does have boot cut, and he also does have double jointed knees, which is also very nice. And he also does have ankles that are on a hinges that goes down this much, they go far up that much, and they do go side to side. So you know, I kind of would have really wished that, you know, for this figure we would have had, you know, maybe some butterfly joints that could have made his arms go a little bit further back. But again, you know, we have to kind of take what we get with some of these figures. Maybe the scaling would have probably hindered that a little bit, but for what it was for back in 2017, man, if you ask me, this is the definitive Green Goblin. Fight with your mom, I don't care. This is my definitive Green Goblin. And how could I forget what's Green Goblin without his pumpkin ball, man? And I really like, the detail in this, man. This is a very well, not only sculpted, but painted as well. Pumpkin ball that he has here, man. And, this pumpkin bomb is very nicely done, man. The detail on here is immaculate. We can see that, the pumpkin bomb kind of has like a little glow in the eyes. It has a little bit of paint in there, and even on the flame of the pumpkin ball, there's a little bit of black wash on there just to kind of bring out some of the details. A very well, nicely sculpted pumpkin ball indeed. And of course, what's Green Goblin without his glider, man? And I remember when this first came out, a lot of people complained about it, you know what I'm saying? And honestly, I really like this glider, you know what I'm saying? There's a little bit of marbling here on mine, which, a little QC issue, I guess, but to me it works. The one thing I kind of do wish was that we had a little bit of paint on here, specifically in the back, or maybe like at least a port, so that way we can put some flame effects on there. However, what I was able to kind of put together, if you happen to have one of these effects, I happen to get this one from one of my Iron Man figures. You can actually put it like so, and you can kind of get this nice little look here. And honestly, if you ask me, that works, you know what I'm saying? If you didn't want to like mess up the figure by like, drilling a hole in there and plugging in your stuff, you can definitely add that on there. I was even trying to go as far as like combining one of these, maybe putting it like so, and then adding this to kind of like utilize that as a flame effect. But yeah, I don't know. It kind of works, kind of doesn't really work. It really depends. I don't know. Maybe I'm just gonna use this by itself. But I really do like this, glider, man. It definitely adds to the figure, man, and you can really get some really nice poses in there with it as well, man. I'm very happy that I was able to find this guy. I was able to grab him at one of my local comic book stores, so very happy that I was able to pick him up. As soon as I got him, there was like maybe 5 other people that were like watching me to see if I was gonna put him back, and I was like, nah, man, I gotta get this figure, bro. So overall, this Green Goblin still holds up the test of time, if you ask me. There are going to be some minor caveats that unfortunately do take away from this figure, but being that this figure was released back in 2017, still definitely feel like it holds up even to this day. I would even argue as to say that this is perhaps the definitive Green Goblin. So that being said, those are my 2 figures for this episode of Retro Revisit, where we go back in time and take a look at figures that were released in the past and see if they've stood the test of time, as well as some of the nostalgia moments that have been attached to them. Now, with all of that being said, I know most of you guys came here to find out the winner for the free giveaway for the Secret Wars Black Symbiote Spider-Man, and we are going to get into that. So let's go ahead and spin that wheel. And your winner is Hakuna Matata 372. Congratulations, bro. Enjoyed the figure. Ironically enough, you were actually the last person on the video to comment, Shocker. So what are the odds that you would actually be the one to win? Congratulations to you, my guy. I will be in contact with you, so look out for that. If I don't hear a response from you within, I'll be fair, a week, I'm gonna give it to the next lucky winner. So please respond, so that way you make sure that you get your figure. I will be including it with the packaging and everything that's there. So be on the lookout for that, man. And for those of you who also played, I want to give you guys a shout out for, watching the channel and sticking it through and actually participating. I do appreciate you guys too as well. I will be doing some more future giveaways on my channel, so please like and subscribe. That way you can stay informed with some of those figures that I will be sending off for those giveaways. So once again, guys, my name is Mr. Action, and thanks for checking out another episode of Packed in Action Figure Reviews. Signing out.